Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would finally get to this basilisk re refit, I guess you would say. Been kind of looking at it a little bit. I built this a long time ago. Um, I think it was built in Alpha 6, right around there, and it was for a 0G challenge to build a tank. And so this was my first experience ever building a tank for the game. Prior to this, the only HV I built was the Scarab HST, I believe. So this was far bigger, and overall I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. It's a pretty big vehicle. It had an awful lot of thrusters. Starting to come back to me that my concept when I built it was I built these pods first, which at the time I kind of intended them to have a lot of the thrust to move the tank and to keep it away from the interior. However, I didn't know all my stuff very good at the time, and I realized that the little thrusters I had in here was not near enough to move something this size, so I embedded a ton of thrusters into the actual inside hull of this tank. Um, so what I'm thinking first is probably the first thing I ought to do is switch this over to combat armor from hardened steel, which it's at now. So typically what I have been doing for this is first thing I want to do is get into the console, and I want to do DI, which is debug information. That will put this little box in the middle of the screen at the top, and it tells you what you're looking at. So if I'm running around here, it tells me that this block is hull armored full small. To do the convert, I want to know what I'm kind of converting to, at least on the baseline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just throw it on a temporary block here, which is of the block type I want, and it's hull combat full small. So next thing I want to do is know what this creation ID is, and that's on the statistics of the P menu. So this is 1066. So I want to get in the console, and we want to use replace blocks 1066 being the ID, and then the block I want to replace, which currently is hull armored full small, and then the block I want to replace that to, and I'm just going to double check this, so I'm going to actually hit escape again. It will not remove what I put here already. Then I'm going to look at this block, hop back in the menu, and I want to replace it to hull combat full small. Okay, so that is part one, and that replaced 2,412 blocks. Kind of scary how many blocks are actually on this thing. So next thing I want to do is, well, let's find the next block type. Let's find a full block, and this is probably a full block right here. Yeah. So okay, it's already got replaced. I see what's going on here. I'm just looking for other blocks. Now this vehicle, I mean, there wasn't the extended blocks and things when I built it, so this might be a little bit simpler. But I know there's thin blocks as well, and I'm trying to find one on here. Trying to figure out what it would consider. Okay, like this one here is a thin block. So hull armored thin small. So what I'm going to do again is hop back in the console, and we're going to do, let's see, we're going to replace this to thin, and I'm going to do the same thing on what I'm replacing it to, and that should do it, I do believe. Yeah, okay, so I got another 562 blocks. Now typically I would do all the extendeds this day and time as well, but I just know that this doesn't have extendeds on it because at the time frame it was built. As an extended, some of these blocks you'll see it'll say like this is whatever extended, and then there's extended 2, 3, 4, and 5. And typically you have to do all of them just to be sure that you're there, but in this case it's simplified because it doesn't have any of that stuff on it. And I think it's already converted. Let me make sure I've got armored glass on here though. Window thick. Let's see, what kind of hit points are we looking at here? 150. Probably sounds right. Let me just make sure that it should have had armored glass on here. Yeah, 150 hit points, and the regular ones are 25. Wow. Wow, that's awfully weak, isn't it? So even 150 is not like super wonderful, but this is a HV, so you know it's not going to be looking at combat steel numbers. All right, so let me get rid of this. I'm going to get into symmetry now. Just lay that across the top. And all right. So next thing I want to do is start addressing the thrusters on this, as well as some of the shaping on this. Now, when I first built this, having these legs here, I wanted it to look like there was a suspension, I guess, but I really screwed it up over here because I kind of built this area, this gun mount kind of position that goes right into it, and I never really liked that. But I didn't know what to do about it at the time. But to start with, because of the new HV thrusters, I'm pretty sure I can get rid of a lot of these. So I'm gonna just try that. These 4 I would like to have gone permanently, with never putting them back in place. And then what I wanted to do is try to carve this body out a little bit so it looks more independent of these lines coming in here. Of course, I'm trying to stay true to the original here too. I'm not trying to go radical and make it into something totally different. I just want it to be, I don't know, look a little, if I can do some things pretty cheaply, not, you know, to have it look as better, I guess. So what I'm going to attempt to do is form an angle here to make it look like this is separate from this other part here, which is going to be kind of rough. I don't have much room to work with. Maybe that's why I didn't do it originally too, but I also don't think I knew how to do that originally. So that could be a big factor. Okay, so here, thinking have this look a little separated. Still not really super happy with that, because it's chopping off this part here, I guess now. But I don't have enough block space because I got to keep this block to maintain that angle. Unless I change the way the whole thruster goes and make this side even up with, or I'm not thruster, but foot, I would say. Could do something like that. I'll cut this stuff away too. Right into the interior. This had pretty thick walls on it, I will say, on the inside of it. And that is another thing I'm planning on doing too, is to extend these walls out a block to form more interior space without really additional cost to the vehicle. Alright, so from here, thinking about trying to make like a little lip here, and actually maybe I should switch this block out to this one then, so I can do something like that over the suspension and try to keep it evened out. figure out how to close this side off decently. I don't want to go too much farther because a lot of this I think I'm going to blow away as well. Okay, so can we do anything in here with blocks besides a straight flat wall to add in some kind of detail? Not really a good situation for that. Maybe you can add a decal part or something over here later on, or little thin blocks to make some kind of frame or something, some kind of detail. All right, from there, here I'm gonna get rid of some turrets for now too. I never did like these angles. I think they're kind of abrupt. I like the idea of having these kind of flares here, but at the time the game didn't have a particular angle set that it does now, so I wanted to experiment with that other angle to see how this would look. And so I'm going to switch these from the 45s to 22.5s for now until we get to the corner. Let's see, let's get into these here. That's not going to work out so well on the bottom side, is it? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's an option for a new angle set. To make that smooth, though, I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll bring this turret mount position here, since there's already room for it, and then I can block this area off as well and keep it thinner. And then maybe also get this so it kind of fits, and then I can get an angle back here again. Like that. And then, yeah, I got room for the turret yet, so that's all the same. This is a little bit more aerodynamic, I guess. Not that it matters, but I think it might turn out all right. So on the bottom side of this too, this needs work now too. Here, let's get rid of. I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff too. I mean, if I could make this thing, it's going to cost more because I switched it to combat armor anyway, but if I can find ways to optimize it, maybe I can lessen the effects of that cost by some, which would be kind of neat, and also expand out on the interior more. I'm going to need to add cargo, and I want balanced cargo in here too. So that's going to be probably a lot of block replacements just involved in that. You can dig pretty far into this thing before you get to the interior, though. Did kind of like that aspect of it, and it'll maintain that aspect too. I did have a bunch of hidden thrusters down in here too. Some of the stuff that I did too at the time, like these thrusters obviously are running right into blocks over here. It's kind of problematic on the design. I didn't have I guess I didn't drop them down enough to have a clear line of sight when I first built it, even though I try to do that now with everything, but at the time I didn't. All right. Get rid of this for now too. Alright, so first goal is I want to make these lip come out here and meet up with these other parts so it looks right. I could just reverse it here, but I don't like really sharp edges like that typically. Makes it look flimsy. So what I do like to do is, I don't know, find other ways, like say this block, so that I can get a kind of a beefier looking edge on it. So kind of something like that. And now it's like almost too much because now I've got, I don't know. It's a different angle and it's stretched out a little more than it originally was, so maybe that works. Just throw in a couple blocks there. Or what happens if I tried to really go crazy and flip this back to that, and then get some angle blocks here. Like that. And then you got kind of a little bit cooler looking lip, I think. No, it's not as blocky. No, it's still blocky, but alright. So I'm okay with this so far. How is that going to work coming into the center area? Not as well, because I don't have a lot of space to work with here, and I want to kind of keep the door. I'll tell you what, let's get rid of the door, let's get rid of the ramp. I want this door to come out a block further anyway. So I'm going to add a row here. Let's get rid of that for now too. Alright. And that's probably going to have to go to. So this part. Okay, so we're doing with this angle set. Get rid of this wonky full block here and replace that also with this block. So we get a more beveled corner in it. Okay, so now on thrust. In some ways, I kind of wonder how much of the original creation is going to be left after I'm done with all these changes here. But some parts of it. This is what happened to the Persis CV2 as well when I did the refit on it. I ended up blowing away kind of a lot of the original ship, but I really tried to stay close, very close to what it was originally, and that's kind of the goal for this one too. All right, so thrusters. I've got the new thrusters here. These are definitely more powerful than the old ones, and I don't exactly know how many I'm going to want total yet. I guess we'll have to find out. It also weighs more than it used to too, so there is that. Now, in the past I did the thrusters vertically and I had spaces between them. I did have, yeah, I probably should do that same way to keep it closer to the original. And not to mention I got 5 block space here to use up to make it even at least. Did I actually move those out further than they used to be or not? I don't think so. God, if anything, I think I put them back in further. Whoops. Okay, so we're here. I guess these thrusters, now they're the same size as the other ones. Okay, so that came out to this block row right past the door by 1. So if I came out to here, I think that would be out further, which is the goal. Okay, so, oh, then I'm going to disrupt the turret mount that actually I could never use. So, when I first built it too, I didn't quite understand, I didn't look up how many turrets you could actually put on a HV. So I added additional potential turret mount points on the bottom side here, and actually I could never use them, which kind of sucked. So that's okay if I block that. They're not needed anyway. I guess I probably ought to bring this out further than 2. Something like that. But in the end, when you look at it, it should look extremely close to what it looked before, where you'd be like it wouldn't look necessarily like a different HV, just maybe a little, I don't know, updated, I guess, which is the goal anyway. Okay, so what I did do is I had that beam out over here. It was just kind of for looks. I actually want mass up here now. Now that's a question. Do I want to put that back in, or is there another way, or something else that could look better than that? I don't know. For now, just make it kind of how it was. By bringing these out, I don't think cosmetically it should make it look much different at all, but that extra row is going to give me more space to work with on the inside, and I really don't think it's going to cost more. But a big aspect I do have to address is the forward thrust. The 4 down here was inadequate. That's why I added that other cluster pack anyway. And I definitely know I want to replace the ones that are in here. Now this is another little bit of a flaw here too. Tactically, these thrusts that I just put back in here are blocked over here. Now, I don't know what the official rules are going to be on this. I've heard things for quite a long time that, you know, you're going to need either X number of blocks between the exhaust of a thruster or unlimited number of blocks between the exhaust of a thruster, but it hasn't happened. And I've been hearing about it for a year and a half almost, and it hasn't changed. So this might be totally fine. And I guess if it's not, with these new thrusters and the thrust power I think I will get out of this, if I maintain similar on the back, I won't need these here anyway. But we'll find out on that one. We'll have to get some thrusters mounted and stuff and see how this actually moves. Again, I don't know if I'm going to need so many here on the sides either. So it could be possible that I cut some of these. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this inside block row. I see one of those dead space blocks here, which instantly I think, hey, that's a great spot to add in an RCS. So might as well have some of those on hand too. Alright, so I think I'm more or less accomplishing the same general looks of what was there before, but it's a little bit smoother, I think, which is, yeah, that's cool. I'm all for that. One thing, one of the design things I usually try to do is to try to make things look smooth or aerodynamic one way or another, especially with SVs. But so anytime I can get rid of like big blocky gappy things. Now this was pretty smooth anyway, I guess. But some of my other designs, like if you ever looked at the MX-8, the original ship, it had some areas that had some big aerodynamic problems on it. Again, it doesn't matter in game, but it just makes it look not as convincing, I guess. Like, you would look at the ship and think, that couldn't fly in real life. Again, I kind of like this nice little nook that's over here that is kind of a cool place to add some RCS. Get some out of the interior then, or just add more, which it's going to weigh more anyway, so I'll probably need more. Alright, okay with these changes so far. Do I even want that there? I don't think I do. I think I just soon keep the separate looking plate there. Let's do the same thing with the back here too. Get it at the same angle as the others now. This thing had quite a bit of spotlights on it, I'm noticing. I guess I've reduced spotlight counts since then. Huh, but I'll keep them all. Because that part can stay original with no issues, I assume. Let's see what happens if I just build this out another row here too. Alright, then there's this part. Wow, look how much I'm digging into this thing. Jeez. Alright, so we want to mimic what I got going on. Oh, that's actually, these bottom areas aren't quite right over there. I gotta keep a 3x3 area open for the door. If I went with my, with the other angle, let's see what happens. So many times too, it's there's always like, you know, what would it look like if I did this? What would it look like if I did this? And there's, I mean, tons of options. And usually I think the best plan is to spend the time and try everything you can think of and figure out which one you like the best. Oh, except I'm out. Oh, I did that wrong. It's out too far. Okay. That's a little bit more even too. Alright. Maybe I should do that same thing on this side too then. I can't really. Oh yeah, I can. And needless to say, this is going to have quite a bit different interior. There's not going to be much of the original left there. I'll try to make it look similar though. You can always spawn this in again for reference. this case, I'm going to just square that off. That is the front. Kind of looks uniform. I mean, I would like to add in some blocks here too, but that's going to disrupt the walkway in. Some of these weird creases too that I've been doing more and more often now is so I can, it's kind of like it's a part separation thing. Now this isn't exactly tweaked out super nicely, but you know, having this like line that you kind of cuts in over here and then around here, it kind of makes it look like there's different like larger pieces that are assembled. And I think the more of a look you can get like that on, you know, I guess it depends on what you're working on, but the more convincing it might look in the end, kind of like it was made in a factory kind of thing. It's just something I always try to think about, especially on building newer stuff. Not so much the Creel's just different, but with the human stuff and also with the MCRN stuff, which I do plan on building more of at some point here. I do like the color scheme, and it's not that much different than what the human faction stuff is. There's a couple different design things, though. Some angles and stuff that I'm using over there that I'm not quite using over here. And they're also not big into curves or roundy edges. It's more stealth-like, I guess. Just for the heck of it, I want to see what this would look like if I had like a little lip here that kind of met up to that piece. Let's see if that's worthwhile or just kind of a waste of blocks. Oh. Well, stuff like this might stay or might go. I don't know. One thing I could do though is give it some a little bit beefier look there by using, say, this and a couple just flat blocks that kind of line up to that same beveled edge there. I don't particularly like to do like an angle like this and then straight and then another angle of the same thing out typically, but I don't know, in this case it might work. I'm not trying to simulate like angle the game can't do. If I am, I typically never like it. I've tried, you know, I've seen other creations do it, and I've tried myself to see, hey, I want an angle that's, you know, 11 degrees or something like that, and it's so I'll use like a couple 22.5s and a couple like a flat block and another, and I never like it. I just to me it looks like I'm building in Minecraft again, and that is what I try to avoid the look on, is to not have it look like Minecraft. Alright, so on the bottom here, definitely gonna need a block row. So I could go with like an angle like this. I could go with a smoother thing and then bevel it out another row. Or I could go with a beefier angle like this one here. With the rest of this vehicle, it's all about armor and it's a tank, so I'm gonna steer more towards probably the beefy side of things, I guess, or the thicker, stronger looking stuff. And I think this will work out too in potentially giving more interior space. in the end. But now I don't know if I like that. It's alright. Now one thing that's I don't exactly know is how much hover engines I'm going to need on this thing and how much weight I actually want it to make it carry. I don't want it to be light. I mean, I don't want it to be, I'd like it to push it around 15K storage if I could. And then of course your ammo and probably some cargo boxes on top of that. It does have the space to hold all that. Alright, well maybe I ought to start thinking about cargo, and I also got to start thinking about how I'm going to get more front thrusters on this thing again too. I was trying to avoid that, you know, I removed what was there because they were basically blocked. Okay, well, so I'm just gonna, I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet and fill these in with full blocks. Now, one thing with the Excalibur challenge and some things that were pointed out on the MX-12 on, you know, do's and don'ts for PvP. In some ways, I found it a little disheartening because, you know, I was starting to put in some leg shot blocks and things like that, and then it was basically like, well, it's kind of pointless unless it's like 3 or 4 blocks thick to even have a leg shot block. So then I'm like, well, geez, should I just not do them then? I mean, because the partial blocks are going to be less hit points than a full block. And if the leg shot block isn't like about 3-4 blocks away from what you're trying to protect, it's just going to cause an explosion at that point and hurt the stuff you're trying to protect in the first place. And I never build stuff that thick. It's extremely expensive and hard to move and heavy, and I guess because I build for PvE, it just doesn't make sense to have stuff that thick. It's just makes it cost more and not as usable unless you're doing PvP. See, what I'm thinking about doing is trying to get some more hover. Yeah, this thing, what does it have? It's got 4 on the inside, and I think these feet have 2 each. I don't know how many I should really have on this thing. But considering the weight and weights and volumes and the storage I would like to get in here, I would definitely say I would probably need more than it originally had. So, thinking about getting another one in these positions and probably do the same type of thing in back. I could squeeze 3 in this area, but it wouldn't line up super awesomely. Could though. Let's try that. If it doesn't need that many in the end, I can always remove something. It's a lot easier to remove something than it is to add in more. So that would have upped it by 2. Looks like I got some fuel tanks. Oh geez, I got RCS next to the fuel tanks up here. from the PvP thing, they also said that RCS kind of work as lag shot, and they don't chain explode. Fuel tanks will, and take out half your, well, take out a big chunk of the area around them. RCS, I guess, do not do that, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a row of RCS like this. In the past, I would try to do a little more part separation. Well, in the past. More recently, I've tried to do that. Obviously, I didn't really do that with this build. I don't know. Should I leave them all? Oh, I'll leave them how it is right now. I guess. Can always change that later. Alright, so one thing I do like to do, though, on a build meant for combat, even in PvE, is I do like to enclose thrusters with blocks and not have them, if possible, not have them like exposed to everything else, or seal them off in case they get blown out. You don't have air leaks and explosions coming inside. So I'll do the same thing with the hover engines too. All that's going to change anyway. And the big thing, do I even need this hump in the floor anymore? I don't even know why I had it there in the first place. Oh yeah, because I slammed in a bunch of these parts here. I see. Well, for nostalgia, I'll keep the hump in the floor. Alright, so storage. A couple things to think about here. I want it evened out mostly from one side to the other of the ship or this vehicle, and I want to think on where I actually want the controller to be placed at. Usually my target goal is to have them somewhat close to the constructors or constructor. And the amazing thing about the, well, let's see, let's do a hit point check here. I'm going to put one of these in. I think these are 200, 100. Okay, and combat steel is 400. Okay, so there's a pretty big difference between those two then. Alright, that's okay. Just trying to make sure they all touch. This kind of provides some additional armor too. And cargo extensions are also airtight, so they are not too bad to work with overall. I don't really mind them. I don't know if I like the whole idea of how things are with weights and volumes. A lot of times I like just the old school Minecraft way of doing things. I know it's unrealistic, but it doesn't mean it's not fun. So all these should be connected to this point here, and what I want to do is make sure they connect across the center. And by doing it like this method, we're getting like even weight distribution between both sides. But the only side effect sometimes is that the texturing needed for cargo, while the textures available for cargo extensions might not be the same in a lot of cases as the ones that I would actually want there, so I have to kind of improvise a little bit. It's not really a big deal at all. Let's get a controller just to see how much storage that actually is currently. I'm going to place this in the center so it doesn't duplicate it. already at 11,000. Not bad. Not bad. And you can, of course, use quite a few different shapes with cargo extensions, but each time you use a non-full shape, it's going to lessen the amount that's in it to some extent. So if possible, I do always try to use a full one. Unless it's button up to the interior, and for cosmetic reasons I'd like to do something different. In this case I kind of do, because I would like to have this angle here. And well, again, since this, if you know, whatever CPU becomes, this will never be CPU compliant. Oh, and the block I wanted to use isn't available here either. Son of a gun. I wanted this block. Well, maybe that's just a bad idea. Or I change these blocks to conform. Or find something different. Does that put us at 12,531? I could just fill this whole area in, but I'm trying to widen this up a little bit, if I could. So where else could I sneak a block in? Yeah, we could use one of these. Whoops. Well, you know what? That could be replaced. Put a full one there, one of these over here. $13,000. So my target was about 15. The only reason I'm leaving this gap here now is because I'm thinking maybe this would be a good place to add some other parts, maybe O2 or something that you'd want to access from inside the vehicle, or even the controller itself. And you know, and I did remove the constructors in this process too, so quite frankly I think I'm going to want to have some constructors, probably 2, but probably only on one side of the vehicle. I'd like to keep it mostly not symmetrical, identically across the interior. So, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet over here, and I'm going to fill in some more cargo extensions there. Get rid of those. Let's put a row like this down here maybe, or something. And then grab a couple constructors. Maybe I should put fulls there. Still short on what I wanted though. Yeah, you know, this little cutout here would be a nice spot for things like armor lockers and stuff. So I'm going to leave that how that is, and maybe I'll just fill this part in instead. But I'm starting to get a little bit of an imbalance because I'm starting to get a little bit more extensions on this side versus this side. So, but I'm going to need ammo too, so maybe this would be a great opportunity to start getting an ammo area on this side and then try to get it pretty close to the same number of extensions between the both on both sides. So how much ammo should something like this have? I know ammo kind of goes a long ways, and I've seen a lot of builds on the workshop too, where you might have like a say a CV, and it's some kind of, it doesn't have a lot of guns on it. It might have maybe 4 to 6 turrets on it and a couple else, but then you'll see like 100k ammo storage. That is a ridiculous amount of ammo storage. The only time I would, like the biggest I think I put in, I don't even know exactly, but a big ship with a lot of guns, I think, could get by with 60 to 80k ammo tops. Maybe more if you really wanted to stock up on some serious ammo, but you don't need that much is the whole point. Ooh, got a hole there now. No. One thing, I don't believe I ever did put cheese graters on it. Nope. So I don't have to worry about harvest storage at least. And that's too low though. That's too low for something like this. 1250. I guess I would want to try to steer for about 4 to 5k ammo, I think. More would be welcome too, due to the type of vehicle it is. So that's going to be a little rough. How am I going to get more of these in? And of course to try to balance the weight of it. These are just some thin blocks down there. Across the ceiling. Maybe that's an answer. Maybe I could go up and over to the other side. Except I'm starting to cut into the exterior. And I don't want to have, on the nature of this, any cargo extensions on the exterior if possible. Unless maybe the bottom. The bottom I would think would be least likely to be hit by anything. It's kind of thin in this area though too. That's why it takes so darn long to do the interiors. Like the exterior is you know, if you get a good flow, if you like what you got going on and manage to, you know, work out the details, it doesn't have to take too terribly long. But then when you start getting into the interior and trying to map all this out and get it to look pretty and get custom and nice spots embedded in for all the parts and work out the storage, and interiors tend to take a long time. Um, Far more than the exteriors, in my opinion. See, now this might be acceptable, because I highly doubt you'd be taking hits from over here. It's quite protected, so maybe I could get, maybe the idea of trying to go down and around might be a better plan again. Probably ought to do the same to the other side then too. Yeah, it's gonna have to go. Oh, and I don't have the right shape again. Haven't quite figured out why, of all the blocks they make available, they make stuff like this available for cargo extensions, but you don't have the base block, you know, with the different bevel on the side, which actually lines up to these. I just don't know why that block would be missing from this set, but it has been, which is kind of, I don't know, it's not that big a deal or anything. It's just odd. Because now I can't put in a replacement block to match the other ones here. But that doesn't mean I can't change the angle here. And let's try some of these transitions here. How about, oh God, what am I looking for? Ah, I don't think there is a transition for that. Not a 45 to one of those. Or is there? Yeah, there is. Like this one. Okay, that works out. And do I really need these? I do like having some stuff to look at if you happen to somehow get to the bottom of it. Although I will say in this case, because I'm trying to get ammo here, it is a bit wasteful. Well, here's something that can be done. Let's put a little lip out here. Oops. A little bit more security, I guess. So I do have some exposed cargo controller or containers, extensions, one of those words, down over there. We're not going across. Oh man, and symmetry too. Darn it. might have added way too much ammo storage now, though. So I might reduce what I have here. Oh, I'm not connected. Not connected. Okay. This should do that. Okay, so we're at 3. Okay, so I don't have way more than I wanted. Don't actually have enough. So what are these blocks here? Oh, they're fair game. Okay. Oh, that already was. Let's see how about that one. Yeah. Okay, so that butts up to the other controller, so I can't pop that in there. So that's all right. Fill that back in. Take that block out. Put in the, okay, can't do that there either. All right. What is that? Close. I guess I'm trying to achieve 4K right now on it. What about this stairway here? Oh, but you know what? Oh, wait a minute. Let me just check what I can texture. Yeah, that's a big problem I have with cargo extensions. So often I want to use them on the floors, but yet I don't have this typical floor like tile texture that I like to use available for that. So I kind of wish that was one of the textures that was allowed for these. Alright, so what do we got? Okay, we went over 4K. It's not bad. That's not bad. I can hold quite a lot of ammo. Of course, I'm not going to complete this in obviously in one session here. It's probably going to take a few to actually get this whole thing redone. But I'll throw the question out there. What for something that's a class 4 HV combat steel with max amount of weapons allowed for that, how much ammo you think it ought to hold, and how much storage you think it ought to have? I'm just taking rough guesses here. I'm not. It's not a science. It's just I'd like to have it pretty useful for that kind of things, to be able to carry a lot of stuff. Oh, I thought they fixed this window problem. Maybe that'll come in the patch. For some reason, I looked at the other ships the other day, and I thought that this window was on the left-hand side was actually moved back to where it should be, but it seems like it is not yet. Maybe that's something in the 10.6 patch that'll take care of that. Well, anyway, this is starting to go on a little long already, but you kind of see it's getting there. It's getting there already. I mean, I didn't want to make super major changes, but I just kind of wanted to dress it up a little bit if I could. Get the power systems better, switch it to combat armor since, you know, it wasn't available when this thing was first built, and get the interior laid out with like new storage and things like that, and the shield and all the fun stuff. And yeah, this thing didn't have a drone hatch either, so that's another thing I think I'm going to want to install in here. Now, an author kind of showed me a heavily modified version of this, and he had some really good ideas in there on how he set up the interior a little different, how he added some extra features to it, and some of those I might try to implement in this too. Now he did a couple things I don't know if I would do or not, but he actually had a additional like first person outside cockpit installed as well as the internal one. He did some really cool stuff with the interior on how it was kind of laid out differently with passenger seats and a number of other things to it. But it was just pretty impressive, you know, like taking like this old design and like re-engineering it to make it do better things, or you know, just so I'm keeping a lot of that stuff in mind too when I'm doing this. Other areas I might want to tackle is I want to see if I can make these thruster pod things prettier one way or another. So I might dig into the blocks in that as well. And yeah, okay. Well, anyway, that's it for this session. Before I go real quick, just show you, I didn't get a lot more done on this. And well, I did some, and it's very slow what I'm doing right now, which is basically this whole engineering deck, and it's a pretty big engineering deck. So I'm getting it, you got the front access door in here. I'm trying to make it all work out so you can go up in the ship from here, right up to your hangar deck, and then down through the engineering. But I've got all my parts that I wanted to install all set up and installed in here now, and I found a home for a core, and we've some of the stuff. I thought it was just kind of cool to see the back end of so many of these thrusters that this thing has, and more piping, and even did this little thing here so it keeps you away from the warp core heat, which I kind of like that little crazy stuff there. Some of the other little things I'm trying to do is, in places, I'm just kind of like carving out the floor and making it look like there's a bunch of stuff going on underneath the like the floor panels. And I mean, it's engineering, you know, I kind of want it to look very engineering-ish, I guess, and also be, you know, also literally in housing all real parts that do stuff. I've been trying to do trying to separate fuel tanks nicely and keep them in pretty hardened areas. So I've got another like 4 big fuel tanks that I added in this front area, and back here it's got another 4. So that's putting it at 8, which isn't enough. In this back area here, I plan on adding some more, and I think I got the RCS covered now. Currently, the ship has 6 RCS in installed locations. 4 of them happen to be right over on this side here, and the other 2 are kind of mounted up over in here, kind of on the center of the ship. These are probably the most effective ones, but I didn't really want to. I could add some more the same way over here. I guess I'll have to determine how the ship flies and see if it needs them or not, or even if I got too many already. I don't know. As in class size, I'm expecting this to be at least class size 7. Could hit 8. I'm at 5 now. I'm just about 5 even. This was an expensive deck to do towards size class. I could reduce it. It's a lot of the pipes and things that are shooting up the size class. One advantage, because I'm not using as many roundy things on this faction, I guess, is overall I've got less roundy shape stuff, but you know, with pipes and stuff in engineering, they go together well, and I don't, you know, I would hate to have to cut them all. But, you know, if I can keep this class size 7, I would like to. But I don't want it to you know, make big compromises to achieve that. Other than that, I would expect it to be probably class size 8. But we'll see how much more this other stuff takes up. This deck down here is by far the most expensive. And I'm going to need a farm. I'm going to need a bridge. Ideas with a bridge right now is I'm thinking I'm going to have that somewhere out in this area here. This area will probably be walled off somewhere in here, and so I can get the farm and stuff around here somewhere. The bridge, I was thinking to try to emulate a little bit of what's going on in the actual ship, and kind of have like a two-tiered deck where you got your lower seats, and then there's like kind of a stairway that goes up to a upper walkway platform kind of around that area for, you know, where other, you know, personnel would sit and man their stations and things like that. So that's the loose idea there. Then of course I'm going to have extra room for crew quarters and things like that around too. But the hangar should be pretty good sized in the end. I'm not sure how much further it's going to come back over here. Might come back a few more blocks. And I'm thinking, because I gotta raise these sides up due to the thrusters, that I might have, I don't know, a parking spot on top of all this over here for, you know, kind of off to the side parking or something like that. Try to work that out. But anyway, you all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot.